Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. Welcome back, Tana. We've missed you on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a while. I feel like I've missed a few episodes, but hey, that's life.
That's life. Yeah, what have you been putting into your basket of knowledge since we last spoke?
Yeah, I think something that I've probably resonated on the last 3 weeks to a month has probably been just the power of consistency. I think sometimes, especially when you have nothing new coming into your life, whether it's going on a trip or a new sport or whatever it might be, you can kind of almost get complacent or wonder why you're still doing those basics, whether it's exercise, food, whatever it might be in your life that makes you happy. So I think just the power of consistency has been something that I've really been sitting with. And I guess now it's been seeing the fruition the last probably week or so of now I'm really happy with where I'm at, but also getting better fulfillment and enjoyment out of things, which I think, yeah, sometimes we often forget that that consistent nature of doing things just keeps us going through those lull moments where it doesn't have to necessarily be going bad, but yeah, that space of, oh, I don't know, if you're feeling a little bit mediocre and then suddenly it picks up again. So yeah, just the power of consistency for me.
Awesome. I love that, and that's something that I talk about this a lot, discipline versus consistency. We can be super disciplined, but not consistent, and then nothing happens. So consistency beats discipline all day, every day. And whatever you do, like I said, whatever part of life you do. Which is why we try to keep our podcast consistent, just saying to our listeners out there. In what have I put into my Boston knowledge? I think one of the big things that I put into my Boston knowledge is I'm reading a book at the moment. It's called The Daughters of Madurai. Someone would actually see it, but anyway, it's a fiction book. It's a fiction book, and that's fine. But it's actually based on the reality, and the reality is about how we forget, like living in New Zealand, that in other parts of the world, being a female or being a female is a real struggle. Actually, even generally, but in the context of when a female child is born into a family, a lot of families either kill the child or get rid of it because of whatever happens in that world there. And it's just a stark reminder to me that we live in a world where there's lots of things happening out there that we need to be aware of and be actually have. We're very privileged where we are at the moment, but also with that privilege or with wherever we are, what can we do to remind ourselves that actually, hey, there's other parts of the world this doesn't happen. And it's really just hit home to me again. Yeah, so if anyone wants to read that book, there's a pretty it's really it's really a dark book, but it's a reality. It's a real book. Hey, what a way to start a podcast on a Saturday. But anyway, we're here to liven it up. So enough about Tanya and myself. As always, we scour the country, we scour the world, we scour everywhere to find people that we think are awesome. And this episode, I'm really excited, really proud, really privileged to welcome to our podcast this amazing young person. Now, this amazing young person, came into my sphere or my orbit a few weeks ago when my LinkedIn just been crazy and my social media just been crazy about the Human Rights Awards, the speech awards, and I was like, what is going on? And this person kept on coming to my feed. I was like, who is this person? Why are they my feed? What is going on here? And then that always led me to dig a deep dive, and it's pretty awesome what this young person does. That is just one part of their life, and we'll come to that there. But also the other thing is, as I just shared a few moments ago with our guest, is we've actually had a sister on the podcast before, so it's pretty cool that it must be an amazing family that has these amazing young people. But without further ado, please welcome to our podcast, Malak. Kia ora, Malak, and welcome to Pastor's Knowledge.
Kia ora, thank you so much for having me here, PJ and Tane. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you for the introduction. I always get so flustered when people introduce me because it's like it's so humbling. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so
No
excited.
worries. It's all from. We could go on for maybe an hour with all the things that you've done. But hey, that's why we have the podcast. Malak, for people who know nothing about you, who is Malak today on the 27th of June, 2026?
At 7:45 p.m. on a Saturday.
That's it.
Um
That exact point in time. Yes.
Okay, gorgeous. So kira assalamu alaikum. My name is Malak Tamimi. I am 16 years old. I am a Palestinian Kiwi. That's kind of how I introduce myself. But I was born in Aotearoa, Dunedin, and I have been kind of brought up in both Aotearoa and Palestine in various points of my life. So I've kind of, spent in total, like totaling the back and forth, I spent around 7 years in Aotearoa and 7 years in Palestine. No, that doesn't work because that's 14 and I'm 16. Um, like 8 years here and 8 years there. Oh, I don't know the maths, but I've spent like maybe 60% of my life in Aotearoa, 60 or 70% of my life, and then the rest in Palestine. Um, and yeah, I think from living in these two very distinctly different places, I've really gained a deep understanding into what it is like to have kind of where you are living determine so much about your life and also dictate so many of the opportunities that you have or so many of the ways that you kind of think and mindsets and the people that you meet. And that's really given me such a passion for people and place, and also how there is a connection between them and how we can connect to people on different places where we are at, even if we're not like kind of originally from there, which I hate the word originally from, but I still use it a lot. Um, we can that's a whole lot of can of worms, but yeah, I think speaking about my passion, my why is really my community and my the way that I've grown up and also the people around me who pour so much of themselves into the mahi that they do even when they don't have that much, sorry, pour so much from themselves into the mahi that they do even if they don't have that much inside of them. That's really what keeps me going. And in terms of like stuff that I'm involved in, I do a lot of kind of youth advocacy work as well as recently a lot of storytelling mahi, and they both shape who I am as a person but are also shaped by who I am as a person. um so in terms of like youth advocacy, mental health advocacy, I do a lot of work with the Mental Health Foundation of New Zealand on the youth advisory group, as well as what else? Oh, the Make It 16 campaign to lower the voting age. We believe that young people are part of democracy and democracy is incomplete without our voices. So that's my favorite. That's my favorite like line to say right after I speak about Make It 16. It just slips out of my tongue. Um, and what else? I am involved in a lot of stuff at school with the Rotary International's Youth Club Interact, and so I do a lot of different fundraising for them. So I fundraise with through Interact for United Nations Women, for Breast Cancer New Zealand, for the Palestinian Child Refuge Fund, Shelter Box, Kiva. I don't know if you know Kiva, but a lot of different things that really does speak to who I am as a person, as well as debating. I'm a very passionate debater, and I can yap a lot, as you can tell. The introduction's taken 4 minutes. That's a record. And yeah, I think I also do a lot of work with Race Unity, speech awards, which is how PJ knows me, which is how a lot of people on the street stop me like, "Oh my, are you the girl from that speech?" And I'm like, "Yes, nice to meet you as well." And yeah, I've just kind of had a mind blank of everything else that I do, but oh, and I've started my own podcast with my co-host Betty. So shout out Betty and shout out Unbox Identities, 4 p.m. Wednesdays each week. So yeah, to sum that up, I'm a very overworked person, but definitely the passion is always there, and that's the thing that drives me the most in life. And the reason that I keep going is my people and my family and who I am.
Amazing. I'll give it a Tanya to ask you the first question, and I'll be back in a second.
Gorgeous.
Um, yeah. Awesome to hear about your journey and being so entrenched in your identity. Where does that strength of diving or accepting your identity come from? Particularly with you growing up in a different place and then moving and then settling into Aotearoa as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very interesting question because I honestly think that a lot of that courage and a lot of that kind of belief in myself comes from me as a person being so open-minded. But before that, obviously, it comes from, well, how are you so open-minded and how are you such a courageous person? And I think that strength has definitely pulled from my mother. And it's really funny because every time I've had a podcast in my room, I always happen to be talking about my mom, and she's like in the other room, and I'm like, oh, you don't know, I'm talking about you. Anyways, um, yeah, definitely from my mum. She has traveled the world to give these opportunities for her children and to like she is literally halfway across the world from every single person that she knows, so that she has known her for her growing up and in Palestine, and now she's here with us, and she's chosen to kind of stay here with my father and my siblings to have give us this life. And I think through watching her navigate the complexities of her identity, by being a Muslim wahine in Otipoti and in Aotearoa, it's definitely given me a lot of courage to be like, wait, she is high key unfazed by all the prejudice that is being thrown against her. And that's kind of showed me that it is all about mindset, right? Because you are going to be hated on in your life by so many people in various ways about things that you are so secure about in yourself, but other people will still find a way to hate on you for that. But it's just a matter of you controlling how you deal with that situation, how you deal with yourself. Sorry, and how you yeah, how you deal with yourself in that situation, because it's like I can either start feeling that I am what those people are saying about me, or I can be like, no, I'm who I am, and I know that's true. No matter what they say, that's them, not me. And that's kind of what I've seen through my mum, is that she gets a lot of hate, and because of who she is as a person in terms of like identity, not but other than that, my mum is the sweetest person you will ever meet, and the person who gives you so much, like so much of like she puts her whole attention onto you as a person. Does that make sense? Like when if you and this is something that I've kind of developed, as people would tell me that I've developed, is that when I'm speaking to someone, I only see them and see them fully and not care about anything that other people are saying. And I think that's something that's really allowed me to both express myself and also accept people as who they are. So yeah, I think that's definitely the thing that's made me able to share my identity loud and proudly and develop that skill of genuinely just not caring. Like that is something that's so hard to like if I were to give someone advice on how to navigate their identity and me going to say don't care what other people say, that's kind of hard for them to kind of like grasp on. But genuinely, it's you have to be confident in yourself, and that's kind of what the point that I've gone to. Yeah.
Yeah, because haters are gonna hate, right? Haters are gonna hate.
Exactly. Haters gonna hate Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that's you got it right. And also the other thing that I like to tell, I remind people all the time, often now, is that everyone's gonna have an opinion, no
Exactly.
matter what, no matter what, right? It could be a good, it could be bad, whatever, but everyone's gonna have an opinion about you. And you can't control that. You cannot control what other people think. You can only control, as you said, how you react and respond to that there.
Exactly.
And it's all
It's
on you.
also like it's also like something that I've been reflecting on a lot recently, through various things in my life, is you cannot control other people's actions. You can only control your reaction. And that has given me so much peace in myself, because why am I stressed and worried about someone else's actions that are somewhat hurting me, when that's not adding anything to my life but stress? Yes, I can be sad about it. Yes, I can be mad about the way things are, but it's like I can only control my reaction to something. And if my reaction is being, hateful to myself and resentful to myself, then I need to control that.
And that's so true, right? And a lot of us don't do that, right? Because a lot of us are programmed to blame. We blame other people for whatever, right? So blah 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 said blah blah blah, therefore blah 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 blah, which is crazy, but it's all about mindset. Like again, it's not about good or bad, it's about the mindset. And as you said right at the start, which is really crazy how it linked back to what I said in my, what the book I'm reading, is the place where you're born really affects and really does determine a lot in your life, where you're born. And I say that not in a good and a bad way, but someone who's born, like I said, in rural India, or a female born versus someone that's born in New Zealand, two very different lives, two very, very different lives because of the surroundings. And we take that for granted. until you actually become aware of it. And I love the fact that your mother is so worldly, but she's passed it on to yourself and your whānau as well, which is really, really beautiful. But I want to ask a question that is also interesting for me is you're a 16-year-old. You are navigating all those cool, awesome things, and then you also have school on top of that there. How does someone who has all that plus school, plus being a young person, navigate life?
Yeah, so thank you for your question. The thing is that up until a couple of weeks ago, people would ask me that question, and I would literally just reply with, I don't know. Because the reality is, and I'm gonna be so unfiltered, I don't know how to balance
Mm,
school and everything else I'm doing. And it gets to a point where I genuinely just crash out and can't like do anything. And if it gets to a point where I put everything to hold that I guess that I at the end of the week I've got piles of stuff that's due the next week and I'm like what do I do right now? Um and I'm still trying to navigate how I can balance this all, but I have recently started prioritizing certain things more and kind of noticing and locating where my energy is at in different points of the year and also different points in the week and where I'm busy and where I have time and what to do. So on my calendar, I've got like one calendar for school, just everything that's like my school classes, but also um when the due dates are and when specifically in the week I'm gonna do a certain thing, such as not just like events and podcasts and whatever and stuff that's fixed, but also a specific time in a week that I allocate for this specific thing, no matter what. And I think that's really helpful because it's like, even though right now, like I have a speech competition tomorrow morning, um, I actually do. So it's like, but tonight I really need to finish my I'm entering a fashion competition and I really need to finish my this blurb for it. So I'm gonna work on that because 2 weeks ago I put that down as a priority for me to finish today. So that's kind of the thing that's helping me. But also, because I'm secretary on the Make It 16 campaign, I've noticed the significance that agendas have. So I've set up, some would call this a to-do list, but I call it a personal agenda. And it's pinned on my Chrome, and it's basically just got everything that I'm part of, many tabs. Next to it is what I need to do, and then next to it is a due date. And that's really helped as well, keeping things organized, also reminding me when I need to remember stuff because I kind of forget sometimes about certain things, which is not good. But that's why you create yourself a personal agenda so you don't forget about this stuff. Um, yeah, so I think that's kind of how I'm trying to balance it, but the reality is it's really hard. And as someone who is very passionate about speaking and very passionate about podcasting, there's stuff that takes up a chunk of your life if you really want to focus on it. For example, the race unity speech awards. That was I started writing my speech from January. I performed it first time in March, and that took a lot of power from me because I was memorizing it every single day because I wanted to do well in that speech competition. Not and obviously doing well for me was to literally just perform well. But then well, surprisingly is arguable because like I worked really hard, but then I didn't expect anything in return. So I did end up making it to the semifinals, blah blah blah, and that was continued. So it was like from January until May, I was constantly working on a singular speech, and then that finished, and now May to what when are we? We're almost July.
sure, sure,
May
yeah.
till May till now, I'm working on another speech, and that's kind of constant thing, right? And same with podcasting. So I think when it comes to stuff like that, there's no certain deadline almost. It kind of just is a recurring thing. So it's just finding space in a week to really dedicate to those things that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being honest about the fact that, it's really hard because it is, because a lot of the times people see outwardly, oh, Malak's got it all sorted, or Tana's got it all sorted, or Bridget's got it sorted, but actually, hey, we have to manage it somehow. But also, if we go back to what Tana said at the start, those small consistent things that you have in your calendar, just keep it going, and it just keeps you rolling, keeps you going, which is really, 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 really beautiful. And hey, it's hard. Life is hard. Life is hard. Um, Question for you is race unity. What made you apply for it? Or who made you apply for it? Or what was the motivation for you to go, actually, I'm going to chuck my head in the ring for this?
Yeah, so That I love when people ask me about that because I think the thing that really lacks in Aotearoa is spaces where young people from these diverse ethnic backgrounds or young people with first-hand experience of racial prejudice come together and talk and share. I think that's the space that I see less of in New Zealand. Um, and the fact that when I saw Race Unity Speech Awards, it was kind of like that was a space that I want to be in, and I want to surround myself with people who actually care. And in terms of when I first kind of knew about it, I won the I won the Year 9 speech competition back like 4 years ago. And after that, I was like really fired up and passionate about speaking. So I was like, what else can I do? So I searched up speech competitions New Zealand, and what came up was nothing for Year 9s and 10s, only for Year 11s. So literally since Year 9, I was eyeballing the Race Unity Speech Awards, and I was like, once I turn Year 11, I'm gonna apply. So I did when I was in year 11 last year. And my teachers were really encouraging of it. And my everyone was just helping me craft this really beautiful speech. And I had so many ideas. And one of my main ideas was I have never written a speech about racism. And that was true because um, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
I thought that racism was like a
Oops.
explicit or verbal acts. So that's why I didn't kind of um write a speech about it because I didn't think it was. Yeah, so I think when I wrote the speech for the Race Unity Speech Awards when I was in year 11, I wrote it about how I had never written a speech about racism. And I think that was so significant because at that point I didn't realize, like before writing that speech, I didn't realize that racism was not just in the explicit and verbal acts and the words and the names and the slurs, but it's in the way that some people interact with people of color. It's in the assumptions, it's in the looks, it's in the different like ways of mannerisms that are conditional to who the person in front of you is. And that's kind of what fueled my speech last year. Yes, last year, in year 11, because that was kind of my lived experience of racism. And at that point, I did it well. I prompted a good speech, but I think that the content was quite heavy and more essay like, and I was not that confident with it. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I wasn't like when I stood up there, I held my cue cards so tight in my hands and I would just look up and down, and it wasn't exactly like my proudest work. So I didn't end up winning. But the person who won that regional champion Tiger was absolutely phenomenal. She made it to the finals. Shout out Tenon. But then it was still kind of like I never take failure or not winning something as like a step back. It's more of just like there's another chance next year. So I entered it again this year. And it was really interesting because I when the email came out that the race unity theme is revealed, I was on the plane to Palestine. And I sat on the plane, or it was like before the plane. The point is that I remember working on it because it had just came out when I was on the plane, and I would just jot down all my ideas, and I was like so like overflowing with ideas. Um, and then that speech was crafted and changed and deleted and added to and whatnot, and too long, too short, add this and too many quotes, bad storytelling, this and that, for a good like 3 months. um and then I really really crafted it in March when I gave it. And the thing about the time that I gave it this year is that the speech last year was definitely from my heart, but the speech this year was really from my heart. Like it was all from my heart. Like it was all my lived experience. I didn't feel like I had to fit a structure because last year, the way that I thought about it was, okay, this is what I need to win. I need to make sure I'm adding this. I need to make sure I'm adding that. I need this, and that. I need to make sure I'm doing what that girl did last year when she won this, you know? So it was just that was what all that was going in my head, that I need to have the perfect speech. But this year, what I did was do the perfect speech for me.
Mhm.
And I wrote it all from my lived experience. I talked about my granddad. I talked about the shop owners in Palestine. I talked about my experiences on March 15th. I talked about I really deep dived into that storytelling aspect, and I was able to perform that speech in a really good way. In a way that when I sat down from performing it, I looked to my teacher and mum and I was like, I'm so proud of myself. Not be, and I was the first person to perform, by the way. Like, it wasn't like a compared to other people, I'm so proud of myself. It was, I did the best I could right now, and I'm so happy. Like, I was just smiling. I was like, oh yay. And I stood up there with no cue cards, and I just gave my speech confidently, and I was just so proud of myself. And I think that's the biggest like achievement. That was definitely the biggest achievement out of the whole thing. That then eventually, so then I won it, thank God, and then I made the semi-finals in Auckland in May, and that was 2 months of just rehearsing, rehearsing, rehearsing. And I refined the speech a lot, actually. Not a lot. I kept the same content, but I kind of refined certain areas. And then when it got to the finals, I went up on the stage. My heart wasn't even beating. Like, I went up and I
You die.
just
You died, and you're like, I'm gonna be a ghost. I'm going to be a
exactly.
ghost. Okay,
Exactly. That's
cool.
exactly what happened. No, what I mean is that like I wasn't nervous at all. Like I went up there and I was like, this speech to me is a taonga, and I hold it so importantly with me that why should I be nervous when I'm performing it?
Hmm.
So, and it was also a very interesting point in my life because the day before I gave the speech, my granddad had just passed away, and I was carrying so many emotions. And I just came back from also a panel in Auckland for Youthline State of the Generation report launch, and that was a really heavy topic as well. So so much was going on, and I was weirdly calm about it, and I just gave the speech, and it was like, I'm done. I'm done. Um, yeah, it was very difficult the day before though at the Race Unity Hui. I felt like I couldn't contribute as much as I wanted to because of all this that was going on. But I came home with two awards, which was pretty darn cool. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I was able to be part of this amazing kaupapa. And now, as of recording this podcast in 2 days, we are going with the Race Unity finalists to Te Whanganui Atara and engaging with policymakers at Parimata about the ideas in our speeches and just race unity as a whole.
Amazing, amazing. And what I love about this whole thing was that it was fueled at year nine. The fuel was at year nine. We think about identity, and we think about where does identity come from. So your identity as a storyteller started in year nine when whatever happened in year nine. Okay, I won the speech award, and I love how um you obviously won because it's an amazing story, but you actually started winning it in year nine because you've been preparing since year nine, right? So and I love that there because a lot of us forget things and we give up things. This is a dream, but I love how you just keep the dream going. And as you said before, and as you say in your social media handles that you're a storyteller, and it's very easy to see why because it's just ingrained. It's part of you, which is really,
Yeah.
really beautiful.
And I think, sorry, I just want to touch on what you said. It's like when I was in year nine, I was absolutely like almost discouraged by the lack of opportunities there was for passionate young people at my age. Like it felt like I was constantly just wishing time away to the point where I can get to that point where I can do stuff, where I can be kind
Mhm.
of old enough to be heard or old enough where people want to listen or want to have me in spaces that they can listen to what I'm saying. So my message to all young people listening to this who are that younger age, it's like keep being passionate because no matter what opportunities are out there, your passion will always stay. And that's what's going to drive you to wherever else you're going to go in the world.
Amazing. What about a message to an older person, to older people listening to the podcast? Because,
Um,
and I say this also because you can have all the passion in the whole wide world, but if the other generations are not going to give you an opportunity, then it becomes it becomes harder. It's not saying the passion dies, it just becomes much harder.
Yeah, I think the message I'd give to older people is take this story and this lived experience to create those opportunities for young people where you can. Because unfortunately, youth organizations nowadays don't have that much funding that they can, or resourcing that they can to do all the stuff that we want to do. But when it comes to older people listening, can you please like low key resource us and fund us? And also just it hurt in year nine to think I'm so young that I can't help. I can't contribute. I can't do anything. Like I have so much passion, but where do I pour it into? So my message is help us to help each other to create these opportunities.
And the other thing I just thought about right now, it might just be a systemic thing, a systemic um, problem. I say, use the word problem, or systemic way of thinking that, maybe 20 years ago, the world was different, right? Information wasn't as easy to get, but now the world is totally different. A year nine in 2026 versus a year nine in 2016 versus a year nine in 2006 versus one in is very, very different.
Hmm.
But the education structure has stayed exactly the same. So the question is, it's not about the year nine, it's about the system. The system changed to keep up. And that's just a thought that I'm going to put out there.
No, 100% I agree. It's like the different generations are coming through, but they're still being taught the exact same thing. They're still taught in the exact same system, when in reality, the system needs to be shaped around the age group that's coming up and also not in a way that's hindering them. Hashtag, no, I'm not gonna say that, but I feel like there are a lot of
You can say whatever you want. Or like you can say whatever you want.
I think I'll opt out to that, but I think it hurts to see so many young people in this generation right now that are coming through high school with a system that's ever changing but not really consulting with them. Like so many different changes, like co-requisites, for example, or like this new system that's coming in now. But these young people find themselves often quite lost in like where like am I like, and also they don't know where if this is gonna affect them or not. Like so many people in my year are like, oh, is a new system gonna affect us? But it's like, no, it's not. But it's like you don't know that because it's all so blurry and it's also like not set out for young people to understand what is gonna happen to us or what is gonna happen to those coming after us.
Yeah, the whole education system in New Zealand is really, really interesting. But that's for another podcast for another day. If I want to guest on a podcast, I can go nuts about that there. And I said that because I've just come back from Zimbabwe recently, and I look at the education system and I was like, this is so clear cut, exactly where everyone stands, it's very clear. It's not the credits don't expire. There's none of that craziness that happens with the NZQA system. It's pretty interesting. So but hey, that's a conversation for another day. This is not about that there.
Yeah.
What I'd love to know is when you were awarded those two awards, what did that make you feel like?
Whew, I wrote my LinkedIn post about this. Check that out. Um, I think okay, I'm trying to think of which one I got for first. I won the Tohu Manukura i Te Reo Māori Māori Language Commission Award for Te Reo Māori, and that one really struck me as a surprise. Like, okay, in my speech, I did add a lot of Te Reo Māori in terms of like words here and there, but I didn't like add any any chunk explicitly. Okay, for example, on the race unity like criteria, it's like you must include one of these two whakatoki or another one from your own cultural faith or background. And one of them was from the Baha'i faith that was provided. The other one was a Te Reo Māori. I think there was another one, Te Reo Māori, and then there was the option to choose whatever I want. And I chose to do my own cultural faith and background because that's something more that I connect with more or like something that connected to what I was writing exactly in my speech. The point is that I didn't explicitly put anything there that was like Te Reo Māori, you know? It was just weaving into my speech where it was like I'm speaking and I'm also adding in words from Te Reo and words in Arabic and words in English that all just kind of came cohesively together. And I think that is why won the award, is because the key word in the criteria was the winner of that award is someone who uses Te Reo Māori most eloquently and effectively. And I think the re- what makes me I have so much to say about this, I don't know where to start. But
Tell us a
me,
story. Tell us a story. You're a
it's just
storyteller.
like the way that I received that showed me that I'm doing my own part in re-indigenizing, and re-normalizing, if that's a word, like te reo in everyday language, because I didn't add it in my speech as a tick box. Not to say that anyone else did, but like I added it in there so subtly and normally that it just felt like me writing a speech. And the fact that I was able to win a speech for doing that so normally really stood as kind of like an example of what non-tokenistic representation and inclusion is. And that's what made me feel so emotional, is because I was able to win an award for that is so significant to tangata whenua, and speaks a lot to me as being a tangata tiriti. And it just made me so emotional. It just made me so, like, I cried. That's it really just made me feel so happy, especially because I my mum has always been so open and wanting to learn so much about Te Ao Māori, and she went in a bunch of courses when she first kind of came to New Zealand, and that's always I was always like kind of there. I was like watching what she's doing, and I was like, oh, I know that word. Oh, that's a cool word, you know. Um, and that kind of unlocked a little bit of 8-year-old Malak. It unlocked a little bit of those memories of me with her, and like learning Te Reo Māori with her and going to a marae and sleeping there, and it kind of um yeah, it really spoke a lot to my childhood, and in a very non-direct way. And this is actually the first time I'm unpacking this, which is quite cool. But yeah, I think that award really means a lot to me, and part of the reason I can't speak that well about why it means so much to me is because I can't decipher how, I can't like explain it. You know, it's just it just means so much. And then what was it called? Oh, Tohu Panuku Human Rights Commission, Tohu Ike Panuku Human Rights Commission Award for Impact. That one was also very special, and that one made me feel very proud of myself, because I'm a person who loves to leave a meaningful and lasting impact on other people, and the fact that I was able to like gain that award really showed me that being myself, sharing my story, just being who I am can mean so much to other people as well as for me. Um, and the Impact Award it was just like so oh I'm getting flashbacks to Racing Unity right now, and I'm like, oh, I miss it. But I think it was a stark reminder for me to keep going, even when things are hard, and to keep sharing my story, even when I feel like it's overshared, or if I feel like it doesn't belong in a certain space. When no, my story is who I am, and my story can actually open up the way for other people to share their stories and to explore their own identities and be comfortable in who are as a person. So I think that's why that award really meant a lot to me, and also because it was sponsored by the Human Rights Commission. I was like, wait, this is kind of cool. Like this would look good on my LinkedIn. But it was more of like I've always been passionate about human rights, and it really spoke that to me and showed me that I can get into this field one day. Like, and I can't like my goals aren't as isolated from me as I might think they are, and I should maintain dreaming big so I can and I will achieve that. And that really is what those awards made me feel proud of myself, and also very, very like full in the terms of I will be able to do more. Or like, I think proud of myself is the best way to put it, and courageous.
So beautiful is right now. I mean, it's a couple of weeks or a couple of months since you had the awards, but the emotion and the impact on you as a human being is so obvious. And what's beautiful about that is because it obviously speaks to the fact that it's not just about the speech. Like the speech is your story, which is it. But as you said before, it's the impact, but not the impact of the words, but the impact that's recognized by the people. I think this is where it changes, right? When other people, because we all have our stories, right? And everyone's got a story to tell, which is why we have this podcast here. But it's when the impact is recognized from other people that you didn't go seeking for, you didn't go seeking these awards, right? It's when
Exactly.
you it's when you don't seek and you get, then you go, whoa, what's going on here? But when you seek and you get, then it takes it away. Like, okay, cool. Oh, this is what I was going for. So, I mean, I'm not not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's those unexpected, whoa, left field things that come through that really just blow your mind. So that's awesome work, which is really, really beautiful. So I acknowledge you and I admire you for that there. And it's really cool that you've been recognized for that there. Talk about being recognized for things. Tell us about the podcast. What inspired you to start your own podcast?
Thank you so much. Wow, I've always loved speaking. I
Didn't
am,
notice. Didn't notice. Didn't
yeah,
notice.
I was
Didn't
gonna
notice.
say, I was gonna
So,
say, did you
so
notice?
shy. So shy.
I was gonna, do you know I was actually really shy? When I was a kid,
Mm.
I was one of the shyest people ever. Like, I think when I lived in Ramallah, which is a city in West Bank, Palestine, for a bit, and I would go to this private school, and I was really, really, really almost insecure in myself and like shy, and I didn't like talk to people, which is definitely changed now. But sorry, tangent. So what was the question? Oh, podcast. In 2024, I was on the Dunedin Youth Council, and for the Dunedin Youth Council, the DYC, we had something called DYC on Air, and I was the social media manager and liaison officer for Youth Council, and part of my portfolio was to run and sustain the podcast. So that's kind of what got me into the field of broadcasting and my passion for kind of talking, um, as well as a speech competition in year nine. But this was in year 10. So um, yeah, through that I also learned the power of consistency, which is why I really do total what you said, Tane. It's like consistency is showing up even when you don't have it in you, or even when you don't have a plan for something, or even when you don't know what you're gonna do or say, or when this is gonna come out or whatever. That's consistency. That's showing up. And that's what the podcast with DYC really taught me, is that I just need to show up, because there was a lot of lack of commitment from some people, and there was a lot of kind of ups and downs in that era, I'd say. And the fact that I was still able to show up, even recording episodes by myself, is what kind of made me so passionate about this power of storytelling and broadcasting. And then I kind of took, I don't want to say break, but I kind of didn't really do much podcasting at all last year. Actually, that's a lie. The Otago Access radio station, or FM, they have something called, they started a podcasting thing called um, Layers of Identity, where young people in Ōtepoti share their identities, story about whakapapa and belonging, and kind of identity growing up in Aotearoa but being from somewhere else, or even just growing up in Aotearoa as a person of colour, and or as an Indigenous person. And I was part of that creative writing project, which was turned into a podcast, which as of last month is a book. So it turned into a book, which was really cool. And yeah, that kind of was the main thing of broadcasting wise that I did in year 11 last year. And I was really passionate about that, and I loved it, and I still really love it. And that piece of writing that I did will always have a special place in my heart. But I think this year, I really, as I was saying earlier, noticed the lack of ethnic representation in many areas, especially the youth areas, and also just people from diverse backgrounds as stories not having many places to be highlighted or showcased. Like, for example, Layers of Identity, that was just like a Dunedin thing, which is amazing, but it's like it was only for so many people to be a part of. And I feel like I really wanted to create something that would give that opportunity for other people and and more broad, diverse range of young people to share their stories, share their identities. Because I know how much it meant to me to be approached by Arena or FM and be like, "Hey, do you want to share your story?" So I wanted to kind of create that space for someone else. That one, it's like a space where someone can share um, their story and kind of unpack certain parts of their identity that they haven't before. For example, right now when I was telling you about the Te Reo Māori Award and how that reminded me of my childhood, that was the first time I've unpacked that, and I think that really does, or at least when I verbalized it, so that really did help me with my identity more. So yeah, in earlier this year in February, at the start of February, I joined something called the Net Safe podcast. We did one with Net Safe about online safety. It was called The Screen from Our Side, about kind of connecting the older generation with how what it is like to be a young person in today's generation. Um, with the power of social media, obviously. And then I met a beautiful person called Betty. Hi, Betty, if you're listening. And we both kind of shared this same kind of concept of kind of like not having many spaces to speak about our stories. We had really good space to speak about our stories online as young people, but then we didn't have many spaces to speak about our experiences as young people from ethnic backgrounds because she's Filipino, and people who have grown up between here and there. So we kind of just like I think it started as a joke that we were like we should do a podcast together. But from me, I was like, wait, I kind of am being serious because Arena or FM, she's always wanted me to do a podcast. She's been like kind of begging me, not begging me, but like she's been like, Malak, you should definitely do a podcast. And I was like, what would I talk about? Because she's interviewed me multiple times, and I know what I would talk about. Like I would talk about that, or I would talk about like youth like organizations and stuff like that. Like I would want to spotlight certain youth organizations. That was kind of my idea. Um, she was like, you should do it. I was like, oh, fine. Like I don't know who to do it with. I don't want to like do it alone. And then I met Betty, and we both really wanted to do it. And we were like, you know what we should do our podcast about? Food. So we were like gonna make a podcast about food where we bring in a young person from a diverse background and they share and they bring a food. Well, not necessarily like an actual food. You can't actually do that in the podcast studio. Bring food, but they talk about a certain food. And then you share the story behind it. That was like kind of our idea. But then we were like, is that sustainable? Maybe not. That can totally be a segment in our podcast. So then for a good like month, Betty and I would meet and we would be like, what do we want to do? What's our podcast gonna look like? Because we met at like United Nations youth events and stuff. So this was kind of us becoming more like friends. And then we unboxed identities. I said the name. I was like, Unbox Identities. um, and they were like, yes, that sounds amazing. And I was like, let's go. So the next day we went and met with Arena and we finalized everything. So yeah, Unbox Identities currently has five episodes up, but we've filmed like 30, and we it's basically just a space for young people from diverse backgrounds to share their perspectives, lived experiences, and different points of views that they have or hold about being a young person in Aotearoa who has an ethnic background or diverse background, who has just like if you have a story to tell, come on Unboxed Identities. And if you're under the age of 25, preferably. Don't worry, PJ, you'll qualify being 21 years old. um, yeah, and I think I've already kind of felt the reward that comes from it because there's so many people that I see the light coming from their eyes when they're speaking about themselves or their home, whatever, and I'm like, wow, I was able to create that space that yeah, nine and me didn't have. And that's why I'm so proud of our little baby. We call it our little baby.
Yeah, no, I know. I know what you mean because Tony and myself call our podcast a little baby. And hey, what I love, what's awesome is it's the evolution of an idea, right? There's a million podcasts out there, and I say this in the nicest way possible. But the thought process that you went through to get to the podcast idea I mean, there's a thousand food podcasts out there, right? If you're being honest, and you're like, cool, we'll do another one. But actually, you've thought deeper, like, oh, what do we actually want to achieve? And if you think about what you said earlier on was impact is really important to you, and it sounds like your podcast is doing that, which is really cool. Um, my other question for you is linked to all this awesomeness that's happening in your world, but on the other side of the world, you have what's happening in Palestine and what's happening like that's there. That's because that's part of your world. How does Malak and Hafano navigate that when you're getting all these cool accolades and these awards here, and then you're seeing when you know what's happening on the other side of the world?
Wow, packed question. Good one, PJ. um, yeah, it's very difficult. It's very like complex and it also makes me feel very guilty that I am able to be happy, I'm able to be free, I'm able to smile and laugh and giggle, whilst my family on the other side of the world doesn't have that privilege. And whilst they are constantly trying to survive. And I've recently went back to Palestine in December, and this is a quote that stuck with me. One of my cousins said, Malak, we are alive but not living. And that's kind of what has my head always goes back to whenever I achieve something that's like, we're alive not living. I'm living, like, so I think in terms of how my family copes with it, it's very difficult. And it's very difficult not just because we don't live in Palestine, but because we live in New Zealand. It's arguably the furthest part you can get from Palestine in that area. That it feels like we are physically disconnected. But the thing about our faith, we are Muslims, and the thing about our culture is that we know that no matter how physically apart we are, the hearts will always stay like close. And that's what I was reminded by when I was back in Palestine, that some of my cousins who I haven't seen or even spoke to for years, we would reconnect and just remember all the childhood memories and how close we are as people. And yes, I think that's definitely how my family copes, is that like we know that our hearts will always be in the same place. We know that our stories will always have rooted in the same soil, and we know that the family will always be there for you no matter what. And we also have faith, and our religion reminds us that no matter what, we will be back in Palestine at one point. We will be back with our people. Even if it is in Jannah or the afterlife, is that we will reconnect, especially with those who have passed away. So it's very difficult when we here are having celebrations and going out and doing stuff and traveling and whatnot. And our worries are about, like the other day, one of my worries was about, oh, should I travel to Wellington in the morning or at nighttime? When it's like, that is such a first world. I'm so privileged to have that problem, and I'm so happy that that's my problem. And that kind of, those subtle things kind of always remind me about my hometown, about how back home I would not have any of these opportunities. As you started us off speaking about, PJ, like geographic luck is such a real thing, and it's so difficult to navigate. I was gonna say something else, but I completely forgot. Is that, oh yeah, a thing that really keeps my family and I going is the fact that our why we do something, what fuels us, and what's kind of brought us to be who we is our people. And the fact that we are Palestinian is the most kind of thing that we come back to, is our people and our pride is who we do this for. So whenever I win something, whenever I'm able to achieve something, whenever I'm able to impact someone, it's not just me doing that. It's Palestinian people doing that. It's my cousins doing that. It is my ancestors, my granddad, my cousins who are doing that. They are who I carry in every single thing. I didn't just win those awards for myself. I won them for Palestine, for my cousins, for every hijabi who was told she was too outspoken, for every Muslim kid that was bullied at school, for every Palestinian who was told they were too Palestinian or too woke. Um, that's who I won those awards for, and that's kind of how my family and I carry ourselves, is with our Palestinian pride, and that's kind of how we cope. That's like, we know that, okay, we know that we think logically about this, right? We know that physically we're not in Palestine. We can't go back in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, the plane rides are really expensive. But what we can do is be, what's the word? Unapologetically Palestinian and unapologetically ourselves, and carrying our people through all that. So I think that is definitely how we like kind of cope, is by being our resilient selves. My family has been through these blockades and have experienced checkpoints. I've experienced checkpoints. I've experienced IDF soldiers coming to our house when I was playing with my dolls and pointing a gun to my head. Like, we have experienced all of that, but we know that, and we know that that's what our family is going through in Palestine. But we also know that we are resilient, and we our faith is our backbone, our people are our backbone that we have to keep relying on to keep going forward.
It was a packed question, but the answer, I'm just going to pick out three things that really stand out for me. The three things that stand out for me are faith, family, and whakapapa. Really, really just go right through everything that you're doing today. You physically can't be there. But those three things are keeping you there and keeping you going. And something that one of our podcast guests said has just always just stood out for me, and it's always be the best ancestor you can be. And that is something I always quote all the time. And it sounds like, what you're doing now is in that vein of life, which is really, really beautiful. Tanya, any questions from you?
I think something it would be awesome to hear from you, Malak, is around how you navigate being in so many, not necessarily heavy spaces, but so many spaces where you're trying to create such a huge impact, and how you navigate, I guess, that space between being all in, but also allowing yourself space to remove yourself when it gets too heavy or it gets too, because you can't keep at it for your whole life. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of a lot of the impact that we want to try and create. So yeah, I guess just how you find that balance between being in there and wanting to create the impact that you're trying to, but also allowing yourself space to remove yourself when you feel the need to.
Yeah, I think the balance comes is quite kind of dependable on which space we're talking about. I think a good example of this is, or maybe I won't give the example, but there's a lot of things that I'm involved in where there's a clear goal. There's a clear like milestone we want to hit and achieve in order to kind of feel like we accomplished something. And there's other spaces that I'm in that's like a recurring thing or like an empowering people type of thing and just sharing stories type of thing, such as the podcast. And I think when it comes to spaces like the um, for example, Make 16 campaign, where we're constantly trying to fight for the main goal, which is to lower the voting age, but also civics education, also empowering young people, etc. It does get really draining to constantly pour into something that you're not necessarily seeing any systematic change happening with for. Um, and I guess it's really draining because everyone on, for example, these types of campaigns has so much. Like these types of youth organizations attract people who are already doing so much and are already being very passionate, etc. Um, and so it gets to a point where in a lot of these spaces, everyone's burnt out. Everyone can't contribute everything or as much as they want to, and for me, this is definitely kind of where I'm hitting right now. It's hitting the end of term and it's hitting time where school's really busy, but also campaigning for everything is really busy. Organizing and executing everything is very, very busy. Um, that it feels like I just need to remove myself. I just, unfortunately, for my own sanity and for my own um, wanting to keep going forward as a functioning human being, I might need to sit back. And I think it's really important to have those people that you can have those conversations with, whether that be like a therapist or your mom or your friend or someone else who works in this organization with you. That, hey, I really need to step back. How can I do this sustainably so that my role is still being fulfilled in the campaign or in the organization, but also my mental health is being looked after? Really privileged to know that a lot of the organizations I'm part of do have that mental health support system and well-being funding, but also a lot of them don't. And it's just a matter of me needing to recognize where I want to draw the line between um, kind of contributing a sustainable amount, oh, sorry, a substantive amount, and also being sustainable within myself. And I think for me, this is a very privileged thing to say, but I am going to Shanghai next week and for an international Sister Cities youth camp as they're needed in Shanghai Sister Cities. And that's kind of my almost what's opportunity to leave everything in Aotearoa behind, disconnect both physically and mentally, and kind of live for Malak and not for everything else. Because I'll always be myself. I'll always be my passionate self. I'll always be someone who cares about all this. But it's also really important to kind of connect with yourself and create that space and intentionally create time to just leave everything behind and focus on a certain thing that has nothing to do with burnout or constant organizing, contacting, this, and that. And I think I've definitely reached that point, beyond that point right now. And this is how I'm going to deal with it. But yeah, thank you for your question.
Thank you for that there, Malak, because I think what you have said there is really, really powerful. The people in these spaces here, so there's the people, like yourself, your sister, the Lolas, the Arthys, the Nates, the all the names that do all these pretty cool things. The other people that are doing it all the time, and the Alyssa Harleys that they're just out there doing all these crazy cool things here. Um, but they as a collective also need to go. Actually, if I stop, the world is going to carry on, and it's okay because I'm going to look after myself.
I,
Because
yeah, I think that's something that I'm trying to be comfortable with because it feels like, especially when you're in a moment when you're trying to transition into training other people to take a certain role, that can be very draining because you're trying to you train them, and then that takes so much energy from you for in the so just for so in the long run you're not doing that work. Um, and it's really hard to just trust that everything will be okay once you leave because you're so passionate about something. You know exactly how to do something, you know exactly who needs to be contacted for what, when, how, and when, and a substantive amount before and whatever. Um, and I think that's kind of what I really want to teach myself within this 2 weeks of disconnected is that everything will be okay when I leave. And it's not because I'm a control freak or like think I'm perfect or whatever, like no one is, but it's like the idea that you are so passionate about something that you don't want to leave it out of the fear of you being responsible for anything that goes wrong.
that's right. That's so so powerful. Um, well, like it's a Saturday night and we've gone well over an hour, which is great, fantastic. But I don't want to take up your time because like you said, you've got a speech to get done tomorrow, and you've got some fashion show stuff to do as well,
Hey,
which is
I would
really cool and exciting.
hey, I would love to be here for even longer. Thank you so much for having me.
No
Um,
worries. We're not done yet, though. We're not done yet. We have one
good,
more
good,
question.
good.
We
Because
have
that's what I was thinking. I was like, no, please don't finish it. Like, I promise my fashion thing is due in like 2 days. Like, I can do it tomorrow.
we'll have you back, you and your sister. What a combo that'll be. We'll be here for six
Oh,
hours.
that would be fire.
Yeah, that'll be total fire. The question we have for you is our podcast is called Passes of Knowledge. And every episode, we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our kit in our basket for myself, for our guests, and for Tanya to listen to. You've shared tons here. My invitation for you is what is one piece of knowledge you'd like to share given your experiences?
Ooh. Always believe in yourself. And I think that's pretty generic in terms of like, I bet a lot of people have said that. But the thing about my race unity speech this year, and I think that's like the peak of my life right now, um, is that I did not think I would do a good job. I did not, I was shocked when I won because I didn't think that I would. And that doesn't come from me having a bad speech. That doesn't come from me having, I guess, a lack of knowledge. Get it, basket knowledge. Um, but it came from a lack of confidence in that what I was saying was worthy enough to make it to that level. And that's also something else is that authenticity is everything. Authenticity will take you so much further than anything else. And I like what you're saying, PJ, about it was before we started the recording, about how AI is taking over authenticity and it's taking over so much of the unfiltered parts of our lives where your authenticity, your voice, your believing in yourself is the most significant thing that you have. And you, mm, please, 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 whoever you are listening to this, do not underestimate the power of believing in yourself because it genuinely takes you so far. But that's also to say that just because you don't believe in yourself doesn't mean you won't get far. But it's like the fact that you believe in yourself can really drive you forward even more. So I think that's kind of what I've been putting in my basket of knowledge recently, and I would like to share it to everyone.
I love that. I love that also because if you don't believe in yourself, why would someone else believe in you?
Exactly. You have to show, it's kind of what you were talking before about like showing yourself and like seeking something, yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that's a really, really powerful piece of knowledge because I think it's really important for us to get reminded of the fact that you've got to believe in yourself. The haters are going to hate at the start, the haters are going to hate. But, if you believe in yourself, even those haters, whatever they say, that can wait at the door. Tane, any last words from you?
Just, I guess, a massive thank you for jumping on the podcast. It's been awesome to have you on, and I guess to see the passion behind what you do. We definitely, I guess, as we've said, everybody has a story, but yeah, there's definitely probably a few that have always stood out as showing the passion, showing the authenticity in what you do, and you can see that in every piece of what you're a part of, you're very passionate about it, and you're there for a reason, and that's really awesome to see. So yeah, thanks for jumping on.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. Like genuinely, from someone who comes from a like podcasting background and like someone whose podcast is all about uplifting these experiences and stuff. I'm so grateful that you have created a space where so many people from so many different backgrounds and experiences can come and share their stories, and I'm so privileged to be part of that. And it's filling my basket of knowledge that I was able to be on here, and my basket of love and aroha.
Oh,
Yeah.
stop it. Too good, too good. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Malak. This is really beautiful. And like I said, it's a real honor having you on here today. And, today you've shared so much about your life. You shared so much about the emotion that came through was really beautiful and surreal, all being super authentic, as you say. Really fantastic. And yeah, thank you for jumping on. And, we wish you all the best as you disconnect in Shanghai and for your
I
fashion
prom
show and for all the things.
I promise I'll disconnect from everyone but you, PJ.
Cool. I can't wait to see that. There we go. Happy days. That's the one to come across my feed. This is amazing. So, all our listeners out there, thank you for jumping on today. Hopefully, you have enjoyed this podcast. Hopefully, you've listened and learned something new. If you haven't, it's because you've fallen asleep, go back and listen again. But till next time, don't forget to put something in your basket of knowledge. Don't forget to find a reason to smile. And as Malak said, don't forget to believe in yourself because that's the biggest thing that's the biggest gift you can give yourself. Till next time, Aotearoa. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.